Version 6.3 is just weeks away, and with the full kit reveals for Columbina and Zibai, alongside the introduction of Lunar Crystallise and the new artifact sets, the DPS rankings we made just a month ago have been completely shaken up. So in this video, we're going to rank the top 10 team compositions in the current and upcoming 6.3 meta based on realistic damage output, team consistency, and endgame performance. Starting at number 10. At number 10, we have Kinich. Kinich's teams are mostly unchanged from before, still hovering around the 110 to 115,000 DPS range in his premium setups. His best performing team is still built around Durin, Emily, and Aeon San. Interestingly, Durin's new artifact set is not actually optimal here. Noblesse Oblige still performs better overall, simply because of the 20% attack buff it provides to the entire team. One very important thing to note is that these calculations assume you are consistently landing 5 shots per rotation using the quickscope technique. Without that execution, Kinich's damage drops noticeably. There are also certain enemies and scenarios where he struggles to fully fill his resource bar, which leads to even more damage loss. That said, in ideal conditions and with proper execution, Kinich is still strong enough to comfortably carry in his premium setups. Moving on to number 9, we have Arlecchino. Despite receiving new team options, her overall position has actually dropped compared to the last ranking. Currently, her best team is shaping up to be Arlecchino with Durin, Aeon San, and Columbina, dealing around 115,000 DPS. This number can fluctuate slightly depending on how many vaporize reactions you manage to trigger, so you might see calculations that are 5,000 DPS higher or lower. That's normal, and it's important to understand that many teams in this ranking are extremely close to each other. In some cases, a lower-ranked team can outperform a higher one depending on builds and execution. Arlecchino's Overload team with Durin is her second best option, sitting around 105 to 110,000 DPS. Once again, Durin prefers to run Noblesse Oblige here. Outside of that, her traditional hypercarry teams like Melt with Citlali or Vape with Yelan are no longer particularly impressive, especially with current HP inflation and newer DPS units simply outputting more damage. At CO, if you want Arlecchino to perform well, you should build her around either Overload with Durin or Overvape with Columbina and Inefa. If you want a deeper breakdown of older Fontaine DPS characters and their updated teams, you can check out the dedicated video linked on screen. Now, at number 8, we have Mualani. Mualani received a small indirect buff, mainly because Durin can now fully take advantage of the new artifact set when played in his black state. Her best team currently is Durin, Sucrose, and Zilonin. Other variations like Mona with Durin or Albedo with Durin also perform solidly. Outside of these setups, she hasn't gained many new teams, since Columbina doesn't synergize particularly well with her. Her second best team replaces Durin with Mavuka. Moving on to number 7, we have Nilou teams which received massive buffs thanks to Columbina. Her current best team is Lauma, Columbina, and Nahida, dealing roughly 120 to 125,000 DPS. However, this setup lacks sustain, which is problematic in real gameplay. For most players, replacing Nahida with Baiju is more practical. That version sits closer to 115,000 DPS and is very comparable to Nefer teams, with the main difference being that you're playing Nilou instead of Nefer. At number 6, we have Veressa. Her Overload setups remain extremely strong. Her best team is still built around Durin and sits right around the 120,000 DPS mark. With optimal combos and execution, you can push slightly higher, but this is the realistic range. What's new is that Veressa also gained a powerful team with Columbina, Inefa, and Aeon San. This has become one of her best in-slot teams, and actually performs better than older setups like Farina, Xianyun, and Aeon San. For DPS characters that didn't receive massive changes from Columbina, you can refer back to the previous ranking video for more details. Now, entering the top 5. At number 5, we have Skirk. She has fallen to this position for similar reasons as Veressa. Her team options have remained almost entirely unchanged, and she currently has no meaningful synergy with Columbina. With ongoing HP inflation, players who do not own Escoffier will see her performance fall even further over time. Without Escoffier, Skirk already performs poorly, so if you plan to use her seriously, getting Escoffier is highly recommended. Unlike Veressa, Skirk has very limited alternative support options.
At number 4, we have Flynn's. His premium team with Columbina, Inefa, and Sucrose is performing close to 130,000 DPS or even higher. This is one of the most stable teams in the entire ranking. Flynn's is extremely straightforward to play, requiring no complex combos or animation cancels. Even without Inefa, Flynn's with Columbina still reaches around 105,000 DPS, which is only slightly lower than the Flynn's Inefa duo at roughly 110,000. His F2P team with Fischl and Sucrose using Hexerai buffs also remains very similar to before. At number 3, we have Nefer. She benefits enormously from Columbina. In optimal scenarios, her teams can exceed 140,000 DPS thanks to increased Verdant Dew uptime, stronger Hydro application, and Columbina's personal damage contribution. That said, Nefer still absolutely requires Llama to reach this level. Columbina plus Nefer without Llama drops all the way down to around 100,000 DPS, which is actually worse than Skirk with Escoffier. Llama is simply too important for Nefer's performance. Even so, I would still recommend pulling Columbina first, since she works across many teams. For dedicated Nefer mains, however, Llama remains the highest priority. Now moving into the top 2. At number 2, we have Zibai's premium team with Columbina, Iluga, and a flexible 4th slot such as Zhongli. You also have plenty of alternatives here, including Goru, Chiori, Albedo, Shilonen, and more. The core of the team is Zibai, Columbina, and Iluga. Iluga is a free character, and you're likely to obtain multiple copies while pulling for Zibai, which makes this team extremely affordable. This team reaches around 145 to 150,000 DPS. It fully utilizes Lunar Crystallise, which is a massive upgrade over the old Crystallise reaction, and that is the core reason why this team is so strong. We've already made multiple detailed videos about Zibai, so for a deeper understanding of her mechanics, team variations, and long-term pull value, I strongly recommend checking those out. Now let's move on to the number 1 team in this ranking. We have Mavuika Melt. With proper double cancel execution, Mavuika's premium Melts team can reach around 150 to 160,000 DPS. This is currently the highest performing team in the game. However, it's important to be realistic. For players on mobile devices or anyone who struggles with consistent double cancel combos, her damage does fall off to around 135 to 140,000 DPS. That still places her roughly in the same range as Nefer and slightly below Zibai's best case scenarios. Outside of her premium Melt setup, Mavuika also has other viable team options. She can be played in vaporized teams with Farina or in double cryo setups alongside Escoffier to maximize melt uptime. As we discussed earlier, Columbina is not an upgrade for traditional Vape teams, which also means she does not pair particularly well with Mavuika in that role. Mavuika can also be played in mono pyro teams, especially after the release of Durin. This is currently the strongest mono pyro team in the game, and remains a very comfortable option for consistent damage. Now, I want to add an important point about the current state of the meta. With recent HP inflation and the massive DPS increases introduced by units like Columbina, many older DPS characters such as Neuvillette and Arlecchino, who previously cleared Abyss very easily, will start to struggle more and more, especially in their older hyper carry setups. Most of the teams where Neuvillette or Arlecchino reach modern DPS benchmarks, around 105 to 110,000 DPS, are what we call wheelchair teams. These teams rely heavily on extremely powerful supports rather than the DPS themselves. I also want to clarify why some teams were not included in this ranking. Teams like Hyperbloom with Lauma, Columbina, and Innefa, or Burgeon variants where Innefa is replaced by Durin, can reach around 120 to 130,000 DPS in optimal play. However, Hyperbloom damage is very difficult to calculate accurately due to its heavy reliance on reaction uptime and RNG, which makes it inconsistent for direct ranking comparisons. The same applies to Neuvillette's best modern teams, such as Neuvillette with Farina, Lauma, and Innefa, or Neuvillette with Columbina, Lauma, and Durin. These teams usually sit around 110 to 115,000 DPS. I didn't include them because in these setups, Neuvillette functions primarily as a hydro applicator. If you replace him with units like Shinkyu or even Ayato, the team's damage remains very similar. Other compositions, such as dual DPS teams with Skirk, Neuvillette, Escaffaire, and Citlali, can also reach around 110,000 DPS. Teams like Chaska Melt or Chaska setups with Innefa and Columbina can theoretically break the 100,000 DPS mark as well, making them viable in the current meta. If you notice a pattern, most of these strong teams revolve around Innefa and Columbina, and that makes perfect sense. Right now, they are shaping up to be one of the strongest support duos the game has ever seen. I hope this video helped you understand the current state of the meta, how team strength has shifted in version 6.3, and why certain DPS characters are rising or falling in value. If you want a full banner-by-banner breakdown and pull recommendations, make sure to check out the video on screen. Till then,